Hmm.
I also have cherries with it.
Mm-hmm.
So. Eat your lunch, Dina. Are you eating your lunch? Dina?
Yeah.
Are you eating?
Yeah.
Ask your loans about returning to loans on rejection. Harbor Freight Tools are working hard in Nico's Automotive South in Illinois. He demands affordable tools that don't quit because he never quits. Harbor Freight builds the tool people. Unbeatable deals right now in Harbor Freight's parking lot sale. Don't miss out.
Did you know that 53% of people do not feel confident that they can meet their financial goals? It can feel so overwhelming to manage money. But SoFi makes it easy with SoFi Plus. $50 free credit in your first win guarantee.
A home story with NBC Cooper. This week, Isabel Young looks at the growing interest in performance-enhancing drugs.
So should everyone be moved?
Everyone.
All of you in the United States and around the world, I'm Fareed Zakaria coming to you from New York. Today on the program, we'll look at Trump's Turkey Air Force One switcheroo and the very serious claims behind that highly unusual move. I'll talk to the New York Times' David Sand. Then, it's been 5 years since Kabul fell, and the Taliban is firmly in control. So what's become of the Afghans who worked alongside American troops against the Taliban during that war? I speak with an American veteran of the war in Afghanistan. A kind of mix of facts and fiction, like some of the AI-generated videos he posts. The same pattern is visible in Europe. In May, Trump announced that 5,000 American troops would leave Germany and suggested more cuts were coming. The Pentagon then scrapped a planned deployment of roughly 4,000 troops to Poland. Days later, Trump announced that an additional 5,000 troops would go to Poland. Sometimes he threatens not to defend Europe against Russia. Other times, he says he will. Imagine being a European defense minister trying to construct a 10-year military plan around this. Trump declared this week that the United States had total control of the Strait of Hormuz. Yet ship tracking data recorded just 18 vessels transiting in one day recently, compared with more than 130 a day before the war. This is not simply a matter of presidential style or rhetoric. It goes to the heart of American power. Aircraft carriers and captains of F-35 credibility. Allies believe American commitment will endure from one administration to the next. Adversaries understood that American threats are sometimes exaggerated, carried real weight. The system was not perfect. Washington did break promises and make mistakes. But there was a broad presumption that the United States was a predictable actor, and the president's words meant something. Trump treats promises and threats as if he's playing a grand little plot. But unpredictability is a very different thing than an alliance than in a real estate negotiation. If allies cannot know whether troops will arrive or leave, if the tariffs will rise or fall, or the agreement signed today will survive until tomorrow, they will not become more obedient, they become more independent. Countries are building insurance policies. They're not sure the Franco-Italian air defense system rather than the American Patriot. Canada is reconsidering its F-35 purchase. European governments are investing heavily in their own arms industries. South Korea has become the second largest seller of arms to NATO countries in Europe and is helping supply the Gulf's air defense with systems cheaper than Patriots. The Dutch Central Bank has used critical cloud services to themselves were not the luxury of Washington, but they show a deeply lost faith in America's support. The same is happening with American flag. The Washington threatens skies, extracts concessions, and then threatens skies again. Governments conclude that accommodation does not produce safety. The Battlefield Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney from earlier this year, his countries hope that compliance will buy safety in homes. So the rational response is to build alternatives. This is how great power declines, not necessarily through some dramatic defeat, but as other nations quietly stop organizing their world around. America remains immensely powerful. They have the world's strongest military, frontier technology, vast capital market, formidable alliances, and the dollar. The credibility is an asset too, painstakingly accumulated over generations, and astonishingly easy to spend or squander. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, President John F. Kennedy sent former Secretary of State Neil Ashington to Paris to brief Charles de Gaulle on the discovery of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. Ashington brought reconnaissance photographs to prove the case. President de Gaulle, hardly an American suffragist, waved them away. He said he did not need the evidence. The word of the President of the United States was enough. That scene is unimaginable today. So the politicality.com will look for my Washington Post article. And let's get started. I want to come now to the curious case of Donald Trump and the catering truck. As you are likely aware, the Boston departed the middle of the Thursday last month, boarding a full presidential train instead of the new Air Force One that was a gift from Trump. But he was then smuggled onto a catering truck to a smaller medical jet, which he flew on to the UK. What was behind this highly unusual transaction? So it was reportedly in response to a threat to the jump from the Iranian conference. There's much to discuss on this with my next guest, David Sand, who is the White House and national security correspondent for the New York Times and author of many books about this topic. David, what is your understanding of the fear of Trump boarding airports?
Well, the concern for me was that some Iranian proxy group, or maybe Iranians themselves, could try to take down Air Force One with a shoulder-fired missile. And it looks like at least some of this intelligence came to the Israelis. From what we can tell, American intelligence agencies had relatively low confidence in its reliability, but you don't take chances with the president's life.
So this concern about Iran wanting to assassinate the President and high-level American leaders that people are beginning to question. And in the context of the current war, obviously, I'm assuming from the Iranian point of view, the United States and Israel have collectively, in a sense, assassinated most of Iran's top leadership, including the supreme leader, including dozens of senior Iranians, and this is payback. But what I wonder about is assassinations are very hard to do. Are there other things the Iranians can be trying to do that we should be worried about?
Well, certainly we've seen a big one, Fareed, in the considerable evidence the Iranians have used cyber techniques to get into the municipal water systems run across the United States. We know about a dozen states right now that seem to have had some capability cannot reach the United States or anywhere else.
Afghanistan. He's so big, intimately involved in the country. What are your thoughts on what does America have to show for a 20-year war in Afghanistan?
There's a couple things we have to show for it. We shouldn't forget that we did not have another 9/11 type attack on American soil after 9/11. And that is because we did succeed in denying an external sanctuary from which to train two international terrorists, and particularly to Al Qaeda. That's important. We shouldn't forget that that happened. Now, did we overreach after that and try to build a democracy in a country that may not have been ready for it? Yes, we did. And in that way, we did not succeed. However, if you ask anybody who is an Afghan who lived in that country during that 20 years, there is no doubt that their life improved greatly during that period. And now there's a diaspora around the world, and sadly, somewhat still in Afghanistan, of people who understand the value of freedom and will fight for it wherever they are. And that is something for which we should be proud. For all mistakes, that is something for which Afghan veterans should look back and be proud.
Tell us about your reflections on that crazy, chaotic withdrawal and the Biden administration. Was it that the Trump administration, post-Trump administration, had already signaled that they were on their way out? Was the withdrawal itself mishandled? What do you think?
Can I just say yes to all of the above? With a caveat, which is that there's no question that the first Trump administration did not set the Biden administration up for success. And we should also credit the Biden administration for pulling off the largest humanitarian airlift in human history. And at the same time, we should be realistic that after the end of August in 2021, nobody in the Biden administration for a period of months really wanted to talk about Afghanistan because of the political pressure that they were under. And that's when folks like myself and others got involved in private efforts. But also credit the Biden administration because after several months, they saw the error of that. They began to partner with organizations like ours. And that led to about 5,000 people a month, Afghan allies who faced Taliban retribution, getting out of the country and their lives being saved. And that happened all the way to the end of the Biden administration and then abruptly stopped. And so at the beginning of the Trump administration, there were, as there are today, about 260,000 Afghan allies, men, women, and children in that country who were basically in hiding and are permanent underclass at risk of being killed or imprisoned at all times, and who we broke a promise to because President Trump made that decision on his first day on.
I saw you on that. You should only let people of the United States to share our democratic values. I was thinking about all those people who we left behind in Afghanistan who were literally dying in a foreign mountainous land with a strong Islamic and tribal tradition, who believed so strongly in liberal democracy that they had risked their lives, their families' lives for it. And they're the ones who are denying the ability to come to the United States.
Absolutely. And furthermore, look, folks like myself who put on the uniform and deployed to Afghanistan, I knew that as long as I survived it, I was going to get to go home. It wasn't like I was going to live the rest of my life working about the Taliban and fighting. If you had the courage to fight for democracy in Afghanistan as an Afghan, that's a whole other level. Your deployment doesn't end. But we promised them that if they put themselves out there and things went south, we would, if it became necessary, in that deployment and bring them to safety. And it is a great moral duty on every person who served in that country, even if it's somebody they didn't personally know. We feel that we personally made that promise to all of them.
So in a sense, you're saying this is a promise that American troops personally made to Afghans, that their country is now in the.
Absolutely. When I made the decision, really frankly, kind of a crazy decision at the time, that my friends and I, fellow vets and others, were going to work to try and bring a bunch of our allies to this country, despite the fact that the U.S. had already pulled out of Afghanistan, it seemed impossible. We were doing it because we couldn't imagine living the rest of our lives not doing everything we could. Because we felt we had made that promise ourselves. Our country, yes, had made that promise, but that didn't feel any different than us making it ourselves. And now, my translator's families here, their kids refer to me as Uncle Jason. My kids refer to their kids as their cousins, and they're making a great difference in our community. And it's made Kansas City better. And that's happening throughout the country, but it should be happening more.
Jason, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Crew.
Next on GPS, corporate America is betting hundreds of billions of dollars on AI. Will the bet pay off? And when, if at all, will those rumored mass layoffs of white-collar workers start? I'll discuss these questions and more with an expert. Percent of businesses
Attendance, the Olympics, the dream's huge. It's about Michael Jordan, decades in sports. Tonight at 9 on CNN, and next day on the CNN app.
Step inside a large company today and AI is everywhere and nowhere at once. That's how a reporter in the Wall Street Journal recently described the strange paradox of AI adoption across corporate America. In a report last year, the consulting firm McKinsey found that 88% of businesses are using AI for at least one function, but just 38% reported that they have begun to scale their AI programs company-wide. For many businesses, AI is yet to dramatically change the way people work or to deliver meaningful return. Joining me to discuss why is Ashutosh Pathi, a senior partner at McKinsey who advises CEOs on AI strategy, innovation, and many other things. Ashutosh, welcome. You described to me AI as a general purpose technology, and you said we've got to understand something about general purpose technology. So please explain what that means and what do we need to understand. Pretty great to be on this show. When we look at AI, it is the latest in a series of general purpose technologies. Electricity was one, computers another one, internet and mobile is a third one. So kind of gets sprinkled throughout the that's great. And in the cases of general purpose technology, we have to separate between the technology transformation, which takes years, versus the economic transformation that takes decades. So in the case of electricity, after the introduction of electricity, it took 75 years for society to see broad-based productivity benefits. In the case of computers, it was 50 years. In the case of mobile and internet, 25 years. On AI, the technology is here, but the getting to broad-based economic transformation is going to with humans to solve more valuable business problems. So CEOs who see the progress are not just focused on productivity and automation, they're focused on driving growth. What do you think when people look at this world with AI? What are human beings going to do? What is the human skill that is going to be most valuable in a world in which the AI can do so much of the analysis that we used to do so well? So for I look at today's discussion focuses a lot on energy, on compute, and talent. Energy can be secured, compute can be purchased, and talent can be hired. The biggest differentiators going forward are going to be judgment and trust. Judgment has to be exercised and trust has to be earned. So from a human leadership standpoint, exercising judgment every day and earning the trust of your customers and employees is going to differentiate the leaders.
That was not an answer to the question.
Thank you. Next on GPS, we'll continue this conversation on AI and its future of work. If there are mass AI layoffs, or even modest ones that spread in particular areas, what does that mean for the workforce? The former U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, has a plan. That is up next.
Decades in sports. Tonight at 9 on CNN, and next day on the CNN app. Harbor Freight Tools are working hard in decisions. Zero compromise, zero calories, zero regrets. Just you, eat and great, and making memories yours. Remember, hardcore, think different. A whole story with Anderson Cooper. This week, Isabel Young looks at the growing interest in performance-enhancing drugs. the whole story and see tonight at the Council.
We just discussed how AI has yet dramatically transformed the way many businesses operate, and with mass layoff fears are fears from that. However, Maui wants to make sure it doesn't happen here. Welcome.
And he was 56, he was a smart man, and he would always say he needed a bridge to another chapter of work. He wasn't ready to be done with it. And by the way, I believe what happened to him happened to millions of Americans all over the Midwest. And that bitterness, anger, having been left behind, is what brings us today's divisive politics.
So when you look at AI now, your fear is you're going to see another wave like that. I think the bureaucracy is, are they prepared for it? Give us a sense of what people are thinking, how people are thinking.
There's a lot of unknown. I think we're in the first or second wave of that. But they are seeing it's not every job. And I want to say this. I'm an AI optimist. I'm pro-innovation. And we talked about this. In some number of years, I firmly believe AI will create more jobs. I do, like every innovation. I'm worried about the transition. And if your job today is comprised of tasks which are going to be automated, you're at risk.
And so, describe what it is you've done. You've raised an awful lot of money, $600 million.
Yes.
What?
Because I think in order to make sure that America leads this global AI competition, we have to make sure we go through the transition without a period of high destabilizing unemployment. And this is in everyone's interest. A lot of the money it raises from companies. Why? Because they don't want to see double-digit unemployment. That's bad for their business. And the reality is we aren't ready for it. Our workforce systems are not ready for it. Our education systems aren't ready for it. Our social insurance systems aren't ready for it. 3, unemployment insurance, which is the only social benefit to get someone from one job to another, was created 100 years ago and hasn't been innovated. College. 40% of people who go to 4-year college don't get a degree. They come out with debt and no job. There's very few options for, say, a 50-year-old woman who has spent 20 years as a call center worker. She loses her job. What does she do now? And so we have to, what we are doing.
He goes and waits tables. Oh.
Pilot a year of service for entry-level workers. Try it, see if it works. Try wage insurance to help somebody get from one job to another.
One of the things that we saw when we were Secretary of Commerce in the Biden administration was red states would refuse to take benefits that President Biden was offering because they didn't want to seem to be cooperating with the Democrats. How are you getting around that problem? Because you are a Democrat.
Yeah, it's a bipartisan effort. My co-chair is Governor Holcomb, the former Republican governor of Indiana, and we are partnering with Democrats and Republicans. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, excellent governor, Republican of Arkansas, is one of our first private states who's working with us. Wes Moore, great governor of Maryland, Democrat, working with us. This is a business imperative. This is an economic imperative. This is about America competing and out-competing the world. And I really don't want anything to do with politics right now. This is about being obsessed with results. So Americans are surprising things of AI. Americans are afraid of AI. You know, if you ask the average American AI, they hear $1 million. And if there's no trust, they won't adopt it. And if they don't adopt it, America won't lead the world. So we have to show the average American, every American, there's a place for you in the AI economy. No one said that tonight. No one said there's a place for you in the services economy. And as a result, they left behind.
But you're not interested in politics right now.
But
Once this program, project succeeds, we will have you back to discuss What exactly might be next? I wonder why. Next on GPS. Sweden has long been a poster child for an inclusive form of democratic socialism with a generous welfare state. But in recent years, the country has come to resemble something very different. I will tell you what changed and why when we come back.
Decades of sports. Tonight at 9 on CNN. Closed caption brought to you by Carnegie Mobile, makers of the world's first
Worried about it. Adam is worried about it.
Yeah, because of AI.
A combination of AI.
And now for the last look. Across Europe, liberal democracies are paralyzed. Their growth has stalled, their debts are climbing, and they cannot bring themselves to change course. France has not balanced its budget in more than 50 years and spends nearly a quarter of all public spending on pensions. Britain's new Prime Minister Andy
What about
Burnham
the United
has
States?
inherited a daunting task of possibly having to raise taxes further to cover the rising costs of health and social care. This paralysis leaves much of the continent with little room to meet today's challenges, from tech innovation to rearming against Russia. But one country offers a way out, Sweden, often still remembered fondly by progressives everywhere as the poster child for democratic socialism. The country, in fact, has made a remarkable pivot toward an entrepreneurial free market economy.
Mm-hmm.
Is a cultural willingness to keep changing when the old model stops working. For much of the 20th century, Sweden was a pioneer of the generous welfare state. The Swedes even have a name for it, folkhemmet, or the people's home. The social contract was that everyone works, everyone pays in, and in return, everyone is cared for. As the saying goes, from cradle to grave. To deliver, and sometimes to an absurd degree. In the 1970s, Swedish children's author Astrid Lindgren of Pippi Longstocking fame faced an astronomical 102% marginal tax. Well, that era belongs in the past. After deregulation began in the late 1980s, Sweden suffered its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Its banks had to be rescued, while unemployment and debt soared. Out of that refuge, Sweden charted a new course, led by Carl Bildt, who entered office in 1991 as the country's first conservative prime minister in 6 decades. The government slashed public spending, privatized state monopolies, and carried out what was known as the tax reform of the century. More than 3 decades on, these reforms have reshaped Sweden. The top income tax rate has fallen from nearly 90% in the 1980s to 50% today. And as the Wall Street Journal reports, public social spending, including on education, healthcare, and pensions, has fallen to roughly 24% of the economy. That is near the US level, far below France or Italy. Sweden's government debt is just 36% of GDP, much lower than the US, which now stands at more than 120%.
Oh,
The social security system invests a pool of worker savings in the market, turning every future Swedish retiree into an investor. And despite its small population of under 11 million, Sweden has produced a remarkable number of tech unicorns, startups worth more than $1 billion, which includes Spotify, Skype, and the mobile payment company, Elana. As Lars Union, former chief economic advisor to Carl Bildt in the 90s, notes, we have put a capitalist revolution into a former, very strongly socialist-oriented society. But this new model has created problems of its own. Wealth inequality has widened, and since Sweden partly privatized its education system, a bitter dispute has broken out over so-called free schools, which are publicly funded but privately run. Critics say these schools hire less qualified teachers so they can make a bigger profit. Sweden's willingness to transform isn't just limited to the economy. In 2015, as the migrant crisis hit Europe, Over 160,000 asylum seekers arrived in Sweden that year, more per capita than anywhere else in Europe. For decades, Sweden was known as a moral superpower for its focus on human rights. But when arrivals overwhelmed the country, Sweden shifted to build one of the continent's most restrictive immigration systems. This move was heartened by the rise of the new far-right populist party, the Sweden Democrats, and the surge of gang warfare in some segregated immigrant-heavy neighborhoods. The violence briefly gave Sweden the highest rate of gun deaths in the EU in 2022, though the numbers have fallen since. Swedes will vote in the general election next month, where whatever the result, these broader shifts are likely to endure. The country's new model of a leaner state and tighter borders now has broad support across both right and left. Ultimately, the Swedish experience shows a relentless ability to reach consensus in times of crisis and then adapt. As the Swedish historian Lars Tregård observes, Swedes are not great political philosophers. They are much better as engineers, including social engineers. When we encounter a problem, the question is not what is right, but what works. Indeed, the liberal democracies that endure are the ones that are pragmatic enough to look at failing systems without being defensive and then reform them thoroughly to endure in the future. Thanks to all of you for being part of my program this week. I will see you next week.
Harbor Freight Tools are working hard in Nico's Automotive Shop in Illinois. He demands affordable tools that don't quit because he never quits. Harbor Freight, built for tool people. Unbeatable deals right now at Harbor Freight's parking lot sale. Don't miss out. So that's our pitch.
Okay, so who's not what's wrong?
Well, of course.
I think the right is crisis.
Imagine wearing your favorite comfy, cozy slippers everywhere you go. And with the new Holy Fit Skechers slippers. Or that's as comfy and cozy as slippers, but they're sneakers. Try hands-free Cozy Fit Skechers slippers. This is the true story of Ruth and Shannon, who were ready to go to dream.
Oh yeah, it was brand new. Everybody was so excited for it.
My job is always to tell my clients.
That's Chris, their advisor.
And I was the only person taking no.
Chris showed them buying that home, living by them a better future, reinvesting the savings for their cash, so they can get all good for the new.
You just want to be comfortable and enjoy.
And that's the real thing, right?
Yeah.
Taking Morgan Wealth Management.
Anything else chance. Especially when it's all those routines.
I have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, but thanks to Skyrizic and clearer skin, I'm all in. Most people saw 90.
So this is what I say about doing that. I gotta go upstairs to get her plate to put in the dishwasher.
Okay, I'll go get it.
Well, I'll also check the toilet.
Right, I'll check the toilet.
Yeah, I just have to keep an eye on her all the time, especially with that plate.
AI is dramatically increasing the demand for you in a way that substitutes can't really cope.
I want to listen to people without it being transactional, without asking people for their vote, but listening to them. Everything you go through, you can turn out, you can endure, and find a good place for it.
When the big things
I like Pete Buttigieg for president. I also would like to see AOC be president also.
Who?
AOC.
Yeah. Something AOC. Let's see. Something Cortex.
Okay.
She's the congresswoman. She is a bright lady. And young.
Yeah, I always thought Oprah needed to be president.
But AOC can.
Mhm.
This is BBC News. In Ukraine, at least 5 people are killed in Russian strikes, while Ukraine launches hundreds of drones towards targets in Russia. Public inquiry into media coverage surrounding former Cambridge professor Jason Hunday before his death is being called for. We'll speak to the organizer of the
AOC
vigil
is 36
taking place
years
in
old.
Maui. Fires burn across Europe.
How old do you have to be? 45?
Island near Athens, as Belgium faces its biggest ever wildfire. Leading candidates in Brazil's presidential election, leftist incumbent Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and
Alexandria
right-wing rival Jair Bolsonaro have kicked off their campaigns.
Born in New York, Rochester, New York.
And from comedy to cabaret, all the highlights from Edinburgh's Fringe Festival.
She's 5'4".
Mhm.
Ukraine and Russia have exchanged some of the biggest aerial attacks of recent weeks. A dramatic escalation in a war now increasingly fought deep behind the front lines. Ukraine says at least 5 people were killed in the latest Russian
At
missile
age
strikes.
29, she was the youngest woman ever elected to the U.S.
While more attacks were reported in the capital Kyiv, as well as Zaporizhia and
Mhm.
Kharkiv. But Ukraine too has been attacking heavily. They're reported to have launched more than 800 drones, with hundreds directed towards Moscow. A warehouse belonging to the online retailer Wahoo was also set alight near the capital. Dan Johnson reports.
Russia has shown once again it can strike at Ukraine's capital and at the foundations of Ukrainian life. This is a market hit in the early hours. There were injuries here, but somehow no deaths. Every one of these stores supported someone's business, their livelihood, something they built with love. It's really hard, Lisa says, describing the loss of her vinyl records. It's like nurturing a child for 8 years, investing in it, and then bang, you just lose it.
Russia says it was targeting sites that are linked to supplying the military, the armed forces, but this was a marketplace selling second-hand books and posters, records, bric-a-brac, and I know that because I was here myself 1 week ago. I saw the families who filled this place looking for a bargain.
Lilia came here to salvage something from the ashes.
Books are saving us, and losing this is like losing our hearts.
In the east of Ukraine, more Russian attacks, claiming military targets, but killing a man and a woman in their 60s when a home was destroyed in Zaporizhia. Ukraine's response has reached further into Russia, and online retailer Wildberries was again its target. Moscow's mayor said 600 Ukrainian drones attacked the city last night. There have been thousands over recent months. And now we know these were among them. British drones made in the UK, fired by the Ukrainians, targeting Russian oil refineries and warehouses. The aim to make Russians feel the impact of this war. But in Ukraine, this is the cost of skies that remain vulnerable, meaning lives are at risk, and a way of life is under threat. Dan Johnson, BBC News.
Matthew Schmidt is Associate Professor at the National Security Department at the University of New Haven. He explained why British drones are significant for Ukraine's defence and what their presence on the front line means.
It's extremely significant. It's an indication that Ukraine is getting the support that it needs from its allies in Europe to do the kind of strategic level, sustained weapons manufacturing that it needs for security. It's absolutely critical.
And those countries are attacking their logistical and infrastructural elements
So we're entering a phase of the war where countries are seeing strategic bombing campaigns, but they're pretty different. Ukraine is using small drones. It doesn't have ballistic missiles right now. So that changes like an attack, and it's trying to create inflation, basically. It's trying to have political and economic effect, an indirect way to build pressure to change the decision making in the Kremlin to negotiate the war. On the other hand, Russia is using its ballistic missile advantage, especially with the lack of interceptors that Ukraine has right now. It could be close to zero, to do direct damage, right?